Right now, this is Ticker News Insight.
Hello and welcome back to Ticker News Insight, where we are looking to focus on the best of business and gather ideas from some very clever people who are joining us from all around the world. I'm your host, Mike Loder, and to our latest story. And it's been 30 years since Australians last experienced a recession, so as interest rates climb, unemployment ticks up, and inflation remains out of control, how skilled and prepared are we for another recession we had to have? The Sales Doctor founder, Ingrid Maynard, says many are in for a rude awakening. Let's bring her in to elaborate on what she's seeing out there. It's good to see you, Ingrid. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Lovely to see you.
Now, let's get into it. We have had a majority within the workforce without having ever experienced a recession before. Can you give us an overview of what it was like in the early 90s when it last happened?
What it was like in my day? Well, look, it was pretty bleak. We had 17% interest rates. We had 10% unemployment. We had bankruptcies left, right and centre. We had people going out of business. You had queues of people lining up for jobs. I know that, there was one builder, one of the major builders, and they had two apprenticeship positions, and there were, I think, 200 apprentices lined up around the block for those two positions. So it was high competition for work. So you think about the talent shortage at the moment, and most employees aren't ready for that. But the other thing too was that, because people were really struggling to meet the repayments, they just couldn't do anything. So you had small business owners working in their businesses because they were the labour force. I mean, it was pretty bleak for some years.
You're not painting an optimistic outlook for what's ahead, but what should businesses be prepared for if the actions of the Reserve Bank takes the country into another recession? What do you foresee?
Yeah, that's right. So I think there's a few things that businesses need to be prepared for. First of all, we've probably got leaders, business owners, and a workforce who has never really gone through a recession. So we've had the global financial crisis, in the late, sort of just before 2010, sort of 2008, 2009. Australia didn't actually go through a recession then. We avoided a recession, but we did have a downturn. And yet most people sort of cite that as a really hard time. And they really don't understand what a real recession actually means. Yeah. So what I would say for them is that they need to be prepared to work harder for less. They're going to have less discretionary income to spend, so growth's going to be a lot more challenging. Also, they need to be prepared for customers deferring decision-making. They're also going to be deferring payments, and both of those factors have a massive impact on cash flow. And when you've got cash flow issues, it just gets passed down the line. So then you start to do things like reduce expenses to try to recoup some cash flow, and, everything gets passed on.
Yeah, and it absolutely just starts to slow down. We've seen tech layoffs happen across the board. Can you prepare for a recession, Ingrid? Is it the planning that we need to see from businesses across the country that they should be considering now or perhaps yesterday?
Yeah. I was in Queensland last week, and there was a fantastic business in Maroochydore who had done exactly that. They weren't necessarily planning for a recession, but what they were doing was just bulletproofing their business so that they could prepare for anything that came their way. And one of the things that they did was they shored up all of their supplier agreements so that they were, going to be robust, and also make sure that they had, stock regardless of whatever happened. The other thing that they've done is they've trimmed all of the fat out of a business. Now, what I will say is that for many businesses, they're reactive when it comes to recessions. They're not proactive. And what I would suggest is that they start working now on doing the things that they need to do, such as, rather than reducing expenses at the time, because there's only so far you can reduce expenses until you actually don't have a business left, you need to really look at the biggest leverage point in your P&L, which is revenue. And if you have a sales team, and I know everyone's going to say, well, of course you'd say that. But, you know, if you're really preparing your sales team to be able to sell in a very challenging market so that they're not selling just on product and price, they're going to be incredibly well placed. And then that is the best way to really get prepared for a recession.
Absolutely, and well said by you, Ingrid. I want to thank you for joining me on the program, highlighting a little bit about what's happening out there in the wild world. I look forward to reconnecting as things continue to unfold. But thank you again for joining me on the program as always.
No worries. Thanks, Mike.
All the best. Well, there you have it. Curious times ahead for 2023. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and of course, to stay across it, join me here on Ticker News Insight. I've been your host, Mike Loader, and be sure to head to tickernews.co for more. See you again very soon. Be well.